Joining us now is New York Post contributor Douglas Murray. It's always good to have you. I think it's interesting what you wrote today in the Free Press, that the war Israel won and the one the West is losing. That was yesterday's piece. And I feel like it is time to take stock of where we are from a broader perspective. How do you see it?
Yes, as I mentioned, there have been basically two wars since Hamas started this war. There's been the war in the region, in which Israel has had amazing successes against its enemies. It's deconstructed, killed most of the leadership of Hamas. The man who orchestrated the 7th of October, Yahya Sinwar, was killed within a year of the start of the war. Hamas has finally been brought to the negotiating table. It's talking about giving up its arms. It's talking about finally giving back the hostages it stole. Hezbollah, to the north, another Iranian proxy, has been pretty much decimated, its leadership killed. American and Israeli planes were able to fly a few months ago with complete freedom over the skies of Iran to take out the Iranian nuclear program. That's one war. The second war, however, the one outside of Israel, in countries like this one, seems to me is being lost. And that is, why is it, as I said in my recent book, why is it that in a war between a democracy and an ally like Israel and a death cult like Hamas, we have seen such an outpouring of support in America, Canada, Australia, Britain and elsewhere for Hamas? Not just support for the Palestinian peoples, support for the terrorists. This is a big problem, and that is a war we are collectively, it seems to me, losing.
I think this war changed Israel, like in so many ways, like internally. And you write a lot about that in your Free Press piece. That soundbite you just ran from Laron, I met him in Israel about a month and a half ago when we were there and went into Gaza. He has changed his life. Like every day of his life is committed to getting his siblings home and the hostages out. Play this clip from Keith Siegel. He was with Dane and me last week, okay? He was a hostage freed after almost 500 days.
I endured horrific 484 days in captivity. I'm lucky to be here alive. I'm advocating for the release of all the hostages. It's the terror group that murdered 62 of my friends and neighbors on October the 7th. It's the terrorist group that kidnapped 19 of us from my community. This organization has to be dealt with, but we must get all of the hostages out of danger.
Douglas, if you look at the 20 points the president laid out, if Hamas agrees to that, Hamas is over.
Yes.
Are they going to agree to ending their organization?
Well, so far they're doing what Hamas always do. They're dragging out the negotiations, they're prevaricating, they're pretending. The president gave them a deadline of Sunday. We're 2 days past that by now. On Friday they said they were willing to start negotiating. That is not following the terms of President Trump's deal. President Trump has got an amazing array of countries in the region and elsewhere to agree with the deal. It's an extraordinary diplomatic achievement so far, but Hamas, as always, is stalling. They are still holding, as you mentioned earlier, Bill, 20 or so hostages who are believed to be alive. They're holding the dead bodies of another 30. Think of how sick a group has to be holding onto corpses for exchange, for bartering, for bargaining. But they're doing so because they know the value that Israelis place on the lives even of their deceased. But here are two very quick things, if I can say so. Firstly, Hamas at the moment is reported to be asking not just for the release of the hundreds of prisoners inside Israel, terrorists inside Israel, in exchange for dead and living Israeli hostages. They are asking at the moment for the terrorists who were captured on the day who carried out the 7th of October to be released in exchange for the remaining living and dead Israeli hostages. That is such an outrageous demand for the group to still be making 2 years on. And one other thing, if I may. This war started because Yahya Sinwar of Hamas launched this horrific pogrom against Israel on the 7th. As I mentioned earlier, he was killed in under a year of the start of the war. But he himself was released in just such a deal. He was one of more than 1,000 terrorists released in 2011 from an Israeli jail where he was for murdering Palestinians with his own hands, and indeed with a kafir of the kind that American college students have decided is such great radical terrorist chic. He was in an Israeli prison. He was one of more than 1,000 terrorists released in exchange for one captured Israeli soldier. So for many Israelis and others, this is such a bitter pill to swallow, to think that at the end of the war that Yahya Sinwar started, once again, Israel would be forced or persuaded to decide to exchange absolutely barbaric terrorists, the people who went and raped and murdered innocent civilians, young people dancing at a party 2 years ago today, to exchange them for dead and living Israelis who have been tortured for 2 years and whose families, as we see, have been put through such hell.
I just add one thing to that, is that a lot of those prisoners were given life sentences.
Yes.
Under the Israeli judicial system.
Yes. Imagine
Sinwar was one of them.
And imagine how we in America would respond
Right.
in such a situation.
For now.
It's a moment of mixed optimism that finally the hostages may come home,
yes,
and pessimism that Hamas still thinks it has the ability to arrange such a bitter negotiation.
Right. Douglas, thanks for being here.
Hey, it's Will Kane. Click here to subscribe to the Fox News channel on YouTube. It's the best way to get our latest interviews and highlights. And click to subscribe to the Will Kane podcast for full episodes right now.